All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Deanna Pasquale. I'm a Regional Pesticide Compliance and Enforcement Officer with Health Canada. However, you may be more familiar with the PMRA. Today, I will be presenting on recent pesticide reevaluations specific to fruit trees. I will be covering quite a few reevaluation decisions in this presentation. Here's a list of the products that are affected, just as a quick overview, but I will be going through them in more detail during the presentation. Before we get started, I would just like to point out a few things to keep in mind during the presentation. So today I will be reviewing recent reevaluation decisions, so RVD, not proposed decisions, PRVD, because the proposed decisions are subject to change, but the decisions are final, so we'll focus on that. I will go over how to find current reevaluation decisions later in the presentation, and if you're having trouble finding them yourself, I will also have my contact information available so you can email me and I can help you find what you're looking for. Finally, I have a cheat sheet that you can download that will give you all the information on the reevaluations that are being discussed today, as well as any links that you may see in the presentation, so there's no need for you to try and write anything down during the presentation unless you'd like to do so. So the topics that I'll cover during the presentation include reviewing the process of pesticide reevaluation, reviewing some of the most important pesticides that have undergone a recent reevaluation specific to tree fruits. And again, I'll only be covering some of the recent reevaluations related to tree fruits, focusing on the most important commonly used products. I will also go over which products have been recently canceled. I will review how you can find the recent reevaluation decisions and how you can find the most up-to-date pesticide labels. So I'm going to start with the pesticide reevaluation process so you can understand how that works. So registered pesticides undergo a reevaluation every 15 years to ensure that the use of the product continues to be acceptable according to current standards. The PMRA reviews available scientific information on the product before proposing a decision. A proposed reevaluation decision is published for a 90-day public consultation to receive feedback prior to being finalized. Once a finalized decision is made, no changes can be made. A reevaluation may result in changes to how products are allowed to be used to meet current health and environmental protection standards, or removing products from the market to prevent harm to health or the environment. And 2 years are allowed for the use of products with label amendments, and 3 years are allowed for the use of canceled products. So now I'll jump into the reevaluation decisions, and I'll start with 2020 and work backwards to 2018. Please also note I am highlighting the most important points about each reevaluation here, but again, I'll provide you the information on how to find the complete reevaluation so you can review the whole document if you choose to. So the first active is Full Pet. You may be more familiar with the product name Full Pan. Changes include cancellation of wettable powder uses on apples, crab apples, and cranberries. Changes to the reentry interval, the pre-harvest interval, application rates, minimum application interval, the number of applications per year, buffer zones, and additional PPE. These label changes will take effect as of January 23rd, 2022. The next active is Ethifon, product name Etherold. Canceled uses on apple trees when fruit are present. Changes to the reentry interval, the pre-harvest interval, the amount of active ingredient per day, the PPE and buffer zones. These label changes will take effect September 24th, 2022. And the active Linuron, product name Lorax. Canceled uses on fruit tree, apple, cherry, peach, pear, plum, and prune. These label changes will take effect November 5th, 2022. So continuing on with the 2020 decisions, the active Fosmet, product name Imidin, canceled uses on grapes, changes to the number and rate of applications, minimum spray interval, buffer zones, reentry interval, pre-harvest interval, PPE, and crop-specific uses. It is toxic to bees, so no application while crop is in bloom. The label changes will take effect October 30th, 2022. Then we have the active Mancozeb, product name Dithane and Manzate. Cancelled uses on pears, cancelled applications using handheld equipment, wettable powder, and dust formulations. May be toxic to bees, so avoid application during the crop blooming period. There are changes to the rate and number of applications per year, the interval between applications, buffer zones, pre-harvest interval, re-entry interval, and the PPE. These label changes will take effect as of November 19th, 2022. And the last slide for 2020 re-eval decisions is thiophanate methyl, product name Senator, reduce maximum application rates for apple and pear in BC. There are changes to the rate and number of applications, buffer zones, re-entry interval, pre-harvest interval, and the PPE. It is toxic to bees, so there's a restricted application during periods of bloom for stone fruit. And these label changes come into effect as of December 3rd, 2022. So moving on to the reevaluation decisions for 2019, the active phosphetyl aluminum, product named Elliott. So there's changes to the PPE, the reentry interval, the pre-harvest interval, the buffer zones, and application rate per season. These label changes come into effect as of June 14, 2021. Then there's the active permethrin, and some of the products are Ambush and Pounce. So there's a new vegetative filter strip requirement in select situations. It is also toxic to bees, so there's a restriction on applications during bloom for some crops. There's changes to PPE, the re-entry interval, rate of application, and number of applications per year and buffer zones. The label changes will take effect this August 26, 2021. Then we have the active trifarine, product name Funginex DC fungicide. So there's a 60-day pre-harvest interval for cherry, peach, plum, and prunes. There's changes to the PPE, the re-entry interval, buffer zones, rate and number of applications per year, and application intervals on peach, cherry, plum, prunes, apple nursery stock, and non-bearing apple trees. These changes will come into effect this August 30th, 2021. So now we'll discuss the reevaluation decision for the Neonics. So the first active is imidacloprid. Products include Admire and Alias. Cancelled uses on foliar application to palm fruit, stone fruit, and outdoor ornamentals. Label changes take effect April 11th, 2021. The next active is thiamethoxam. Products include Actura. Cancelled uses on foliar application to orchard trees. These label changes take effect April 11th, 2021. However, there is an additional year for few crops due to the lack of alternatives for pest management for the invasive brown marmorated stink bug to allow growers to find pest management strategies. So in this case, it would be April 11th, 2022 for apples, crabapple, pear, and oriental pear. And then clethanidin products include Clutch. The foliar application to orchard trees has been canceled. These label changes come to effect April 11th, 2021. Again, there's an additional year for few crops due to the lack of alternatives for pest management for the invasive brown marmorated stink bug to allow growers to find pest management strategies. So that would be April 11th, 2022 for palm and stone fruits. Just a quick note here on Neonics, more work is still being done, so we may still see some restrictions beyond these. So now we'll jump into the older reeval decisions from 2018. The first active is chlorothalonil. Products include Bravo. There's an addition of a vegetative filter strip, updated reentry intervals, buffer zones, application rates, and the number of applications per year, and the PPE. Label changes took effect May 10th, 2020. Then we have the active Captain. Products include Captain and Maestro. There's revised reentry intervals to 29 days for stone fruit. There's changes to the application rates, the number of applications, retreatment interval, buffer zones, and PPE. Label changes took effect May 10th, 2020. So continuing on with the older registration decisions, we have the active iprodione. and the product includes Rovrol. So there's canceled foliar treatment on cherries, plums, peaches, prunes, apricots, and grapes. It's toxic to bees, so avoid application during the crop blooming period. There's also changes to PPE, and these changes took effect as of June 21st, 2020. And the next active is cypermethrin. Products include Ripcord, Mako, and Upside. They're actually all the same product, they just have different names. So there are changes to the PPE, the reentry interval, buffer zones, and vegetative filter strip is required. It is toxic to bees that do not apply during the crop blooming period. These label changes took effect July 31st, 2020. And we have the active deltamethrin. So products include Decis flowable insecticide. So there's changes to the PPE, the reentry interval, and the buffer zones. It is toxic to bees, so avoid applications when bees are foraging in the treatment area in ground cover containing blooming weeds. These label changes took effect September 14th, 2020. And then we have the active Thyram, and products include Thyram. Cancellation of all foliar uses on apple, peach, and plum. Label changes took effect December 14th, 2020. Then finally, we have this last active, pyridibin. Products include Nectar. It is toxic to bees, so there's no application during bloom for apple, pear, cherry, nectarines, and peaches, and avoid application during bloom for grapes. There's addition of buffer zones and changes to the reentry interval and PPE. These label changes came into effect December 19th, 2020. So this last reevaluation slide will include all the actives that have recently been canceled on tree fruits. So the first is Furban. Products include Furban 76 fungicide. All registrations canceled. Last date of use December 14th, 2021. The next is Matram. Products include Cabrio and Polyram. All applications on fruit trees are canceled. The last date of use for the canceled applications is June 21st, 2021. Then we have the active chloropyrifos. Products include Dursban and Lorsban. All agricultural registrations have been canceled. The last date of use for the canceled applications is December 10th, 2022. And finally, we have the active Xyram. Products include Xyram 85 fungicide. All agricultural registrations canceled. Last date of use for this product is December 14th, 2021. So just as a reminder, if the product active has been completely canceled registration, then the last date of use will be 3 years after the reevaluation decision. But if there are canceled uses on the label, then the last date of use will be 2 years following the reevaluation. Now that we've gone through the recent reevaluations specific to tree fruits, you may be wondering how you can find the full reevaluation decision. It's actually quite simple. In a search engine, in this case I use Google for example, type in the active and the PMRA decision. So for example, you could put Captain PMRA decision. Once you open the PDF copy, you'll want to read the measures to minimize risk section, and in the appendix section titled Label Amendments for Products Containing, and then the active name. So again, you could put Captain there. These sections will give you all the required label changes following the reevaluation. In addition to reviewing recent reevaluations, you may also want to review updated labels for specific products. So how you can find up-to-date labels is by searching the words PMRA label search using your preferred search engine, and this will bring you to the label search site. Under the initial criteria search field, there's a drop-down menu for you to choose which information you'd like to search by. So here's the initial criteria and the drop-down menu. And you could search by the active ingredient, the product name, registrant's name, or registration number, or PCP number, that's on the label of the product. So that's the drop-down menu here. You can also search pesticide labels on your mobile device with the new mobile application. The application is free and it's also available for iOS, Android, and BlackBerry by downloading the app that is linked here. So that concludes my presentation today. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us. There are a couple ways you can do this, including using our website or information line. Additionally, you can contact either myself or the other inspector in the Kelowna office, Laura Feeney, if you have any questions. Again, I have provided a cheat sheet with all the information from the current reevaluations that I've discussed today in this presentation, as well as links that you've seen in the presentation so that you'll have access to those as well. I hope you've enjoyed the presentation today, and I hope you found the information to be helpful. Thank you.